All right, perfect. Good evening, everyone. Councilman Amir Gathers, the chair of the DPW committee here in the city of Syracuse. I'm glad to be joined by our President Pro Tem, Councilor Hogan, Councilor Nave, Majority Leader, Councilor Caldwell, excuse me. I messed it up. Councilor Caldwell, Caldwell, Councilor Peniagua, our Majority Whip, Councilor Majoke, Councilor Monto, Councilor Williams. I'm also here with Greg Lowe, our Commissioner of Water, Mr. Brandt, and our Chief Operating Officer, Corey Driscoll Dunham.
That's me.
Today we're going to be discussing, of course, the update on the lead water services here in the city of Syracuse. There's going to be a presentation that is going to be given by our water department for everyone to see here on the screen to my right, your left. I'm going to ask that after the presentation, we are going to open the floor up to those questions that are going to be asked from members of the community. I'm going to ask that you all ask your questions being pertaining to the presentation that is given tonight to actually show you the facts that we have here of the proactive measures that we have taken for the update in our lead water services in our lines here in the city of Syracuse. And please, everyone, please be respectful and mindful of others. If there's anybody that's going to be rude and talk over, I'm going to kindly ask that you be escorted out so that we can have everyone that has a question, everyone that wants to be heard and given the opportunity. You're going to be given 2 minutes to ask your question. I have some cards here to read off some names that people are going to be come up to ask the questions. If there's time at the end, because that's your 2 minutes, I'm going to cut you off. But if there's time at the end, I'm going to ask that those who haven't had a chance to finish your questions, to please come back up and ask your questions and finish your statements after we get done with the presentation. Yes. Yes, if you have not had an opportunity to fill out a card, if you're going to ask a question, please go out into the hallway there and put your name on a card so that way you can be recognized. I want to be sure to recognize everyone as much as I can here and give everybody and grant them the chance to do so. But from there on, we're going to pass the mic over to our Commissioner of Water and also our Chief Operating Officer, Corey Driscoll Dunham.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor, and thanks to the Council for giving us the opportunity to have this conversation. As Counselor Gether said, I'm Corey Driscoll Dunham. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the City of Syracuse. To my right is Commissioner Robert Brandt from the Water Department and our Chief Policy Officer, Greg Lowe. I also want to recognize Jeff Till from the County Health Department, who's also has joined us tonight. So,
Jeff. Sorry, Corey, before you... Where's Jeff at? Can you come up too, please? Just in case there's some questions, you mind sitting up on the front row? You can sit right next to her. Or you can sit next to her. Jimmy's got to get 4 yards over here.
Yeah, come on in. So here's just a quick overview of the presentation. So we're going to give an overview. We're going to talk specifically about water sampling, then service replacements, talk about filter distribution, public education, helpful links and resources, and then I'll also, as Councilor Gethers alluded to, open it up for questions. Next slide. Okay. So again, thank you for the opportunity to talk about this topic. You know, one of the things that I think a lot of people probably know is that our water system operates in a highly regulated environment, you know, with oversight from the EPA, the State Health Department, and the Onondaga County Health Department. The source of our water, as illustrated there from Skaneateles Lake, I think as many people know, is free of lead. As the water travels through the mains, those are also free from lead. So the water is completely free from lead coming from our water source through the public mains. Where lead is introduced are the pipes that connect the main to the street. So you can see on the diagram here, the circle there is the public water main, and then the yellow differentiates the public side from the private side. And so that's really where lead could possibly be introduced, because those pipes can be made from a few different materials, but we estimate approximately 14,000 or so of those service lines in the city are comprised of lead or contain lead. For years, the water department has treated the water with orthophosphate, which is an additive that creates a thin protective coating through the pipes and plumbing fixtures, so that way it reduces the likelihood for lead to leach into the water and reduces the presence of lead altogether in our water. For many years, the water department, as required by the EPA, has tested its water to ensure that that level of treatment was effective in reducing lead. The testing used to occur every 3 years, and it happens in about 100 to 120 homes across the city, all on a voluntary basis. Under the new EPA requirements, they changed the timeline from 3 years to every 6 months. So last year, the city of Syracuse started testing every 6 months, and in 2023, the results were under any action level by the EPA. Next slide. So water sampling. So let's talk about what happened earlier this year. In the first round of sampling for 2024, so those first 6 months, the water department tested 104 homes, again, voluntary basis. 27 of those came back over the EPA action level. And there's a parts per billion that indicates what the action level is. We immediately contacted the state health department and the Onondaga County Health Department to notify them. And the sampling outcome triggered a citywide notice in August that notified all city residents of the results and sharing ways that they can reduce exposure. The water department reached out to those 27 homes. 24 of them agreed to retest, and so far only one has come back over exceedance. You know, there are still some final test results to come in, but I wanted to at least share the update on those 27 homes. These results were an outlier of our results historically, and the charts here that are available on the easels really show in a graph form just how much of an outlier that sampling was. That led us to investigate further as to why, after years of being below the EPA action level, oh, there you go. Great. That's okay. Thanks, Greg. So because of those outliers,
Chief, could you tell where they did the testing at?
I'm sorry?
Where?
Where in the city?
Yeah.
So homes throughout the city, so yeah.
The area where the 24 houses were.
So they were all over. They're all over the city.
There weren't
Yeah,
one
they weren't
location,
concentrated in any
spread it
particular
across.
neighborhood.
Okay.
It goes all across the city.
What about the one that, what about the one?
So the one on, I believe you're talking about is on May Ave. We retested them and they came back in less than 1 parts per billion. And we did 2 tests on that house to make sure, back-to-back tests to make sure the EPA, their levels were down, and they came back less than 1.
So you can see here from the chart that the first half of 2024 is an outlier in terms of our results historically. And also we have on the chart the second half of 2024. So as the EPA requires, we've continued testing in the second half of 2024, and those results so far have come in under the action level. So that led us to investigate further as to why the first 6 months of this year would produce results that are so not in line with what we've had historically. And that's really when we've concluded that there were errors in the sampling procedures. So, next slide. So how do we get rid of the lead services? Part of that we've already started by steadily and significantly increasing the number of replacements, especially as part of our Dig Once project. So we've replaced service lines, both the public and private, as part of our Butternut Street Dig Once, our West Genesee Street, and our East Colvin Street. Next year, the city will replace more than 3,000 lines, supported by over $22 million in state funding. At approximately 27 of those homes citywide, they are in areas of the highest concentration of older homes. The city will replace the private lead service at homes where, prior to the EPA requirement, we had replaced the public side. So we're going to go back to those 27 homes that, again, are spread out throughout the city in some of the areas of the highest concentration of older homes and replace that private side.
Corey,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I have a question.
Sure.
So we have a number of homes on the north side, has low water pressure, or we mentioned with the commissioner. So I'm concerned, these homes, they're old homes.
Yeah.
Have they been tested for lead, the water pressure that is low? I'm concerned, could they be susceptible to lead because the water pressure is low?
Yeah, I don't know, Rob, if there's any correlation between water pressure and the
Yeah,
orthophosphate that.
Right, the water's still traveling through their lines, their pressure's low, then their pressure picks up. We know that's an issue up there, on the Gilbert Ave area.
Right.
We're looking to install some new devices to try to help us figure out where the leak is. Like I said, we've chased the leak for months now, but we think we have a good idea.
But I don't think there's any higher.
There's no, it doesn't change the composition of it.
Okay, thank you.
So these projects, also the ones that I mentioned, will be planned using the city's equity score, which many of the councilors may be familiar with because we use it as part of our road reconstruction and planning what roads we're going to construct. The equity score is based on 7 factors, primarily focusing on race and income, but also considers, elderly, single-parent households, residents with disabilities, level of educational attainment, and rent-burdened households. Hundreds of the service lines will also be replaced in homes near major water infrastructure projects that we already have in the works on the east side of Syracuse and in Eastwood. So the future replacements, once we get past what we have planned for next year, future replacements will be prioritized based on the completion of the citywide inventory. So, we're going to have to, there are a number of properties where the material of their service line is unknown to us. And so we will be working beginning next year to, identify the material that makes up that service line. And the plan is to either maintain, but preferably accelerate our current replacement pace. A phased approach can then be communicated to residents to let them know the timeline of when they can expect their service to be replaced for those who live in a home that does have lead service.
May I jump in here?
Sure.
We've got about $23 million leading to 3,000 service line replacements. Doing the math, we need about $100 million to get to the 14,000. What have we done to proactively try to find more money and accelerate that 5-year timeline?
Greg, do you want to speak to that?
I'm Greg Lowe, Chief Policy Officer, and one of my duties is interaction with our federal and state partners, and we have continued a dialogue at both the state and the federal level of direct requests for funding for these purposes. That's how in the fall of this year, we received an additional $12.8 million from the state of New York as part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, which makes funding exclusively for lead service replacements. We're continuing those discussions on a near daily basis right now with the State Health Department, with the Environmental Facilities Corporation, making the case for continued funding for future years. We have, as an annual basis in the city's legislative and funding priorities, put forth a proposal to the state for $35 million for this work. We haven't achieved the full $35 million, but our 22.8 in the past year or so is an excellent start. We've been told by our partners at the state and federal level that we're talking to that we should expect continued support for this purpose for the city of Syracuse as we go forward, which is why what we've communicated, Councilor, is that we expect to continue this at least 3,000 properties a year pace every year going forward until we finish the work. There is uncertainty about what external funding pipelines will bring, but we're going to make that case very strongly, and so far, we've done it well. I'll note that there's a significant difference in today's world from when other cities have looked at local funding sources or to conduct such work. It was pre-bipartisan infrastructure law. It was pre-changes to the Water Infrastructure Act in New York State, which has given New York more flexibility to put more funding into lead service replacements. We think we'll be able to make an effective case for this going forward.
Greg,
who does this work? I mean, are private contractors involved, or is it all our department?
It would be private contractors would be
Do they have a
involved.
capacity, do we have a local capacity to take care of that? We probably, do we?
We're trying to draw people in to take care of it.
Oh, I mean-
We're coming up with a plan to separate the bids, to draw in more people to come in and do the work all at the same time than one person taking on the bid and taking a long period of time. We're trying to expedite the process.
And I think by having that phase plan, we can provide more predictability for contractors so they would know what to expect the following year. It's not as if the goal would not be to have the amount that we're going to replace in flux. We would have a solid plan with phases so that a contractor could know what to expect.
And that's a pretty solid number, the 14,000. I mean, a lot of we're talking 70% of our
No.
houses were built before 1970, so.
14,000 known.
No,
So it's definitely going to go higher.
right.
Okay.
So the way we're looking, if you look at the map, there's almost like a line down Eastwood in the Meadowbrook area, because Eastwood wasn't part of the city at one point. So that's where we have most of our unknowns. Eastwood, Meadowbrook area was part of DeWitt, so we have a lot of unknowns in them areas. We have people working with us to help us figure out them by, the age of the home, what the neighbor might have, where we have a plan.
I would suggest that if we have any flexibility, if we had to bring contractors out from this area, from some other area, I'm sure the council will go along, because obviously this is a situation we want to.
We just have to assume too, there's going to be a lot of competition.
Yeah.
Because everyone is in the same.
Every city in the
Every
Northeast.
city in the country is in the same position we're in.
So at the current pace, the city expects to eliminate the lead services in about 5 years, which is about half the time that the EPA has given us. They said we need to eliminate them in 10 years. We're expecting to do it in 5. And for what it's worth, as the commissioner just mentioned, every municipality with lead service lines is going through this process. Even the Onondaga County Water Authority recently, within the last month, sent letters out to their customers notifying them that some of their service lines contain lead. So it's the suburban areas surrounding Syracuse too. It's not just within the city.
So,
Great.
Corey, we've had an outcry for a declaration of a state of emergency with practically, what does that do? If we were to do that, does that open up funding streams, or is that a real thing, an actual state of emergency?
I think first and foremost, what we want to keep the focus on is the data and the facts about what occurred here does not constitute what we believe is an emergency. Add to that, we have a very firm commitment to go after every possible funding source. And all the consultation that we've heard from experts at the state level is that there is no faster path than the funds that have been that are available now through bipartisan infrastructure law and Water Infrastructure Act. There have been comparisons made to the city of Newark and to a provision that an emergency declaration locally could lead to additional funds being transferred, a federal law that allows a transfer. That transfer is by no means assured. It would be a complicated process, we're told, and it would require the EPA, the state and the federal government to look at the data to see if the data supports an emergency, which goes back to the original point that I made is the data that we're looking at doesn't show an emergency by our estimation.
So the letter that you just submitted as far as the lead service investigative report, you're asking for an $8 million bond. That is to find out exactly where everything is?
Correct.
Like what the commissioner mentioned as far as
Correct.
Eastwood?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask a quick question about the testing. You said that you had identified 27 homes that are not lead-free. So when you identify these homes, do you then identify neighboring homes? I mean, do we test neighboring homes to make sure?
So I think the first thing we did was retest those homes again to find out, what had happened. And when we retested those homes, all but one have come back underneath the action level. So something occurred that when it was tested at that time, it was exceeded the action level. But when it was retested, by the property owner, by the resident, it came in under the action level. And so that's why it's we've concluded that something happened during the water collection that caused those 27 homes to exceed the action level, but then when they were retested, all but one came in under the action level.
So the neighboring homes from those homes that were identified were also tested, is my
So
question.
I think it's if you test it and it comes in above the action level, and then you retest it and comes in below the action level, it made us question the
If the
first
first test was
collection.
good.
Because the second time was, performed with attestation from the property owner saying they did it according to the rules, and it came in below the action level, which makes us question those
So all
27.
27 is same.
So there are a
same.
few that are still outstanding, but we've gotten the vast majority back, and only one has exceeded.
I want to say real quick, Mayor, just because we have a lot of people and I know they have a lot of questions
Yeah.
as well as we do.
Yeah, I'm almost done if that helps.
No, but, yeah, so two points that I would like for you to talk about.
Yes.
A, what was the big testing that caused this, right? And B, to explain, I know you briefly talked about the money that's coming in for the infrastructure, the pipes, but homeowners are really concerned about that piece that's connected to their house. It's like making sure that piece where the lead is connected.
Yes.
We need to make sure we talk about that. 'Cause
Yes.
That's the extra part that
Right.
is very important.
So, Counselor, we're replacing both the public side and the private side. So we're going to replace all the way up into when it starts to enter into the home and the home's fixtures. So previously, we had only replaced the public side, but when we're doing these replacements now, and those are the 27 homes citywide that we're going to go back to. In previous years, we were, what's 2,700? What did I say, thousands?
You said 27.
2,700, yeah, not 27,000. 2,700 properties where previously, in years past, we had replaced the public side. We're going back and replacing the private side. And then going forward, and that's what we've been doing with the Dig Once projects, that's what we're doing with the major water infrastructure projects we're doing now. We're replacing both the public side and the private side. So, it used to be that if you wanted to replace it, you could put it on your taxes, but through these projects, we're going to be replacing the public and private.
So here's what I'll do.
I'm almost done.
Can I get one more?
I'll let you guys go for a little
Okay.
bit, but let's finish this presentation
Okay.
first.
Okay, I
If you
got
can,
one.
jot down your questions, and then we'll revisit for the counselors to ask the questions, and then we'll go to the public so that we can make sure that we have the slides and everything going forward, because there might be some information here that might answer your questions.
Okay.
So if you can't finish the slides first, and then we'll go
Yep,
back.
no, we're all set with this one. So next slide, please. So filter distribution. So there's been a lot of important and critical discussion about the distribution of water filters, particularly as we await the final confirmation of the test results for the second half of 2021 for that sampling. So in partnership with the Onondaga County Health Department, we have already placed an order for 6,000 water filters. We're not going to, instead of waiting for people to ask for them, we're going to be bringing these to families in the city. We've been working very closely with the Syracuse City School District to finalize logistics for distribution to all households with children from pre-K to first grade, so basically under the age of 6. And we've also included charter schools in that distribution plan. We're also working with the county through WIC and other programs to distribute it to women who are pregnant, as well as daycare centers, including in-home daycare centers, and caregivers of young children and infants. So we want to get these into the hands of the folks that are labeled as at risk.
And that includes senior citizens,
So if you're, if you are like me and my daughter is watched by her grandparents and they have a lead service, they could get a water filter as well. Yes. Any interested or eligible households that aren't included in the distribution plan that I just mentioned will be able to reach directly out to the water department to receive a filter. Once the water sampling is finalized, then we can assess next steps in terms of the distribution of water filters. But in the interim, and again, out of an abundance of caution, we'll be making these filters available at no cost to homes with lead services that house at-risk populations.
I got to cut in that. On that note, the number for everyone here, if you have a pen and paper ready, is 315-448-8360. Just in case you can't see it on the screen there, for you to be able to call the water department to request a filter. Anybody
Okay.
need to repeat their number? Repeat it again. 315-448-8360.
Quick change, what's on the slide is incorrect. What's on your fact sheets that you all have is 8354.
40. Sorry.
It's just, you're reading from the presentation, right, Counselor?
Right, okay.
But the fact sheet, which everyone has a copy, has the proper number. We've instituted that hotline number with the staffing available, and an around-the-clock voicemail for people to leave messages.
Say it again.
448-8354. Apologize for the inconsistency, just a late change that didn't make it into the slide. The number on your fact sheet, for those who have it, is correct.
So public education and communication, so obviously a critical component of this whole entire effort, but also ongoing compliance with the EPA guidelines will be continued public education. We need to increase the awareness of the highly effective precautions that people can also take to mitigate the traces of lead related to water service at the home. In partnership with the Onondaga County Health Department, we're working to create materials that will inform the public of ways to reduce the risk. This includes outreach to our community-based organizations that work with residents whose primary language is one other than English. By the end of the year, in accordance with EPA requirements, any homeowners with water service lines that are lead, that are galvanized, or are of an unknown material will receive letters notifying them of the findings and advising them of actions that they can take to reduce the risk. Residents can also check a map available on the city website at sear.gov/lead-free Syracuse, which I believe is also on the handout, to determine the material of their service line. If the material is unknown, there is information on the page to help residents identify their service, upload photos, get more information. So it's a helpful website.
Chief, is there any way that we can make it more simpler for people who don't go online to upload it? So if they have a concern, we have to have another way that they can do it.
And you mean like emailing it, or what would that be easier?
Postcard, something that is more, everyone doesn't use the internet or know how to upload. So they have a concern, they got to be able to handle it in another way.
Okay, we can do that. True.
And then you could have your staff tell them.
Makes sense.
Address.
Okay.
They don't need to use a computer or a phone.
Happy to explore other ways as well.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Counselor.
We'll go with the next slide.
Yes. So reducing the exposure to lead, we have spent time tonight, which we welcome the opportunity to talk about it, to discuss lead services and the way in which the city and residents can reduce any risk of lead in the water. But I don't want to leave out an important part of the conversation. Lead paint remains by far the most common route of exposure for lead poisoning of children in Syracuse. I don't say that to minimize the concern about water at all, but to echo what our Onondaga County Health Department has said in terms of the overall risk posed by lead paint as opposed to lead service lines. But as we all know by now, there are recommendations and actions, if you can go back one slide, that residents can take to mitigate the presence of lead. They're listed here on the slide. Many of you know them by now, using cold water, running your water. I won't go through all of them. If you have a lead service line and you would like to volunteer for the sampling program to have your water sampled every 6 months as part of the overall program, the water department is always accepting residents who are willing to take part. And then the final slide is just some helpful links for people seeking additional information. A lot of that is available on the handout as well. I do appreciate the council's time and the opportunity for us to address this critical issue, and I hope the information has been helpful, and we look forward to answering any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Commissioner. Thank you, the Chief Policy Officer, Greg Lowe. I'm going to let the council ask questions first. So start with Councilor Williams, and then we'll open up to the public after that.
We have been given the explanation that the sampling that occurred was not by protocol. We've heard that the water samples that were above the EPA threshold were taken by and large from outdoor spigots, and that led to higher rates. What I hear is that we still have lead coming out of our spigots. It might not be in the bathroom or the kitchen, but it's coming out of a tap from the home. To me, we talk about two different things. One is, our according to our testing, water coming out of the kitchen bathroom meets EPA thresholds. And if we follow that line of reasoning, we have a crisis in confidence. When you look around the room and you see all the people here, they're unsure whether or not they can believe the city and the government and the tests that are coming out. Kind of the two-parter. One is, what are we doing to reassure residents who have, valid concerns? And the other is, let's acknowledge that we have water coming from our taps that has higher levels of lead than we want. When I think about my childhood, I ran around in the yard all day long and I drank from the hose. I actually liked the flavor of the water from the hose. Kind of weird, but I did. We have families that are told not to water their tomato gardens with water from the rain barrels. They use their hose, their tap. And we know that ingestion of lead can occur from vegetables. Kind of a broad, what are we doing about the fact that we have lead coming from our outdoor taps? And two, kind of related, what's different about the outdoor taps compared to the indoor taps? And why is the orthophosphate not proving to be effective in those lines?
Yeah, so I mean, I think at the first one, in terms of what are we doing to try and instill confidence, I think opportunities like this are one of the things that we're doing, where we are, you've seen the Onondaga County Health Commissioner on the news, on Channel 9, talking about, what happened here, that the source of our water is safe. We have done mailings. We welcome opportunities. I was at, you and I were at a neighborhood meeting this weekend. I welcomed that opportunity to talk about what is going on with the water sampling and to try and clear up the confusion and make sure that people understand exactly what's going on here. So, open to other suggestions of what we could be doing. We're taking every opportunity we can to try and share this information. And again, that's in part why we are so much value this opportunity tonight to talk more about it. In terms of the outdoor, I mean, Rob, if you want to.
So the reason why they tell you not to drink out of the outdoor spigot is because you don't use that constantly. So water will sit in that. And before 2014, the hose bib, which is the spigot, was made out of brass, which had high levels of lead in them. And it's like, how you have a bathroom that you don't use in your basement or your attic and you turn it on and the water comes out orange? You wouldn't drink that, right? Until it cleared up, or, wash your hands in it until it started turning the color. It's kind of the same thing with an outside spigot. We don't use it, so water sits there stagnant. And that's where it leaches. The orthophosphate kind of breaks down and it leaches lead into the water. If you let your faucet run on your outdoor spigot for a long period of time, you would be treating your service line with orthophosphate, but most people don't do that.
How long? When you say let it run for how long?
A few minutes, just enough to coat it, get rid of the stagnant water, flush your line, your water's good. But most people don't use it enough. And then when they turn it on, it's sat there because the water doesn't move around in the line. It sits there stagnant for weeks, months. I mean, we were talking, the January to June mark for the testing, and who uses their hose, in that amount of time. Not many people, so that's where you could get higher levels of lead. That's why they tell you don't drink out of your spigot. That's why the EPA requirements are to do it from your faucet and from your bathroom. That's where you use regularly. That's where the water travels through the most. So, real quick, we do lead testing, your water samples, not to know if you have lead. We know you have lead. We're testing to make sure our corrosion, our corrosion action is working, making sure we're treating your water so it's not leaching. Once we take away all the lead services in the city of Syracuse and we put all new copper into your home and we replace it, we're still going to treat your water. We're still going to test your water, because a lot of homes in the city of Syracuse have an abundance of lead plumbing, lead fixtures. I grew up with a house that had a claw bathtub, and I could tell you the fixtures were definitely old and lead. So nothing changes. What I mean? What we're going to do as a city to protect the residents of the city, even when we change them all, we're still going to treat the water. We're still going to test the water.
And are there pools of funding for homeowners or for landlords to replace the interior plumbing?
Not aware of
Yeah,
it.
not that I'm aware of, but there might be.
And I don't believe there's any EPA regulations for them to do that right now.
That was part of my question in terms of when you said replacing private line. I was wondering how far it goes
We're going to replace from the main to the meter.
to the meter. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Now, how much money do we have available to replace? How much money so far with?
Right now, we got a grant for, 22.8 million.
Okay. How many pipes?
Two different grants.
How many pipes will that replace?
We can't say. So the reason why we're going back and doing the homes right away with that we've already replaced the public side and jumping right into the private sides, because we can get that moving quicker. We could get that steam rolling, because we can work through the winter doing that, because we're not disrupting the roadways. We're doing it from the curb stop into the home.
And we have the talent and the manpower to do this?
It's going to
Yes.
be contracted out, and we're going to draw on as many contractors as we can get to get the ball moving.
Questions for a representative from the County Health Department. How many cases, or has there been any cases or an abundance of cases that we've had in relations to our water and lead when it comes to child and infancy in households?
Right. Very seldom are we seeing a correlation between the two. It's impossible, if you have a blood lead level, it's impossible to tell where the source of that lead is. And as Corey mentioned, we're firm in the fact that the majority of elevated blood lead levels is occurring from housing stock, from chipping paint and such.
Are there any other councilors that have any questions before we move on to the public?
I just want to clarify. When we were talking about the breeder filters,
Yes.
you said seniors with children or caregivers. You didn't say senior citizens, period. Those are seniors. Let's emphasize senior citizens in our 80s and 90s who live here. We want to assure them, to let them know that they can't afford one, that they can get it. They can get it through the water department, or they can get it through a community center or a senior center. Let's, in my opinion, we should emphasize that, because I thought there was some misinformation on that. And also, the most important thing is public trust. Public trust. When you say, well, just start drinking bottled water, sometimes that doesn't cut it,
Right.
in my opinion. Thank
Right.
you.
I mean, I think in terms of the distribution of the filters, a lot of that we are following the guidance from the health commissioner and the county health department in terms of, prioritizing at-risk populations, but we can certainly have a conversation about where senior citizens fall there.
And we're only saying drink bottled water for those who have fear of the water. We're telling you that, our water, we treat our water, we're below EPA regulations on nothing has changed for the city of Syracuse. That our water source is the same, our treatment is the same. Everything we've done for the last, I can't say how many years, nothing has changed for the city of Syracuse. We're only telling you to use Brita filters and bottled water and stuff if are you fearful. We're telling you to run your water, cold water, what I do is I run my water until the temperature changes in it. Now I know I'm drawing in fresh water from underground. And we're telling you that minimizes any chances of any kind of lead entering your water. We're not telling you you have to drink bottled water. We stand by our water.
Corey, when I read this story, when it first came out, it said that the city of Syracuse was at a level worse than Flint. And, as a father of children, you guys know I got quite a number of them.
You have children?
As a father of a child that is 2 years old, like that first thing, I almost freaked out. right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure everyone that is sitting here had a similar experience.
I live in a house with a lead service,
Right,
and I have a
right.
child under 6, and she's been raised the whole time in that home, so I understand.
And I guess my question is, for that level of, hearing what you guys are saying versus what was reported, it are completely far apart.
Correct.
How do we make sure that that level of misinformation doesn't happen? Because that in itself is just, it's, how do we make sure that, especially as a body,
Right.
to make sure that, and then from your part, how do we make sure that that level of misinformation doesn't get into public like that?
A good question.
Well, I would point out, Counselor, that it certainly is not anything that we ever said, and we publicly said that we did not believe that was true. Tonight, we're presenting to you in the form of the history that you're looking at in front of you right now, the history of the data, and an explanation for the outlier data from the first half of the year. I can't speak for others who would say that, but I will say that it is information that is not helpful and does not reflect the data and the facts of what occurred.
Thank you. Last question before we open it up to the public. Commissioner Brandt, you being the new commissioner of the Water Department, how confident are you ensuring that we'll be able to meet the needs of the concerned members of the community to ensure and say that our water is safe to drink and our water is safe to have a performance level?
Well, first and foremost, so everyone knows, I'm a city resident for 53 years. I've lived on the north side my whole life. I've drinking out of, I don't recall a home that didn't have a lead service line. I have 6 grandchildren that live in the city of Syracuse that have lead service lines. And I could tell you as a new commissioner, when I got these results and this news, I was as shocked as everybody else. I did my investigation. I didn't believe in them because I know how we treat our water and how we value the quality of our water. You know, I have a team that takes pride for many years in the quality of water we give the city of Syracuse. And I'm absolutely confident in our water, that our water is safe. Nothing has changed. Do I wish I could get rid of all the lead services tomorrow? Absolutely. But, you know, you think about it, they started putting them in the 1800s underground to the 1930s, 1940s. You're talking a 50, 60-year problem. We're looking to fix it in 5 years. So I think we take it serious as well. You know, like I said, before I'm a commissioner, I'm a resident as well. My family's been a resident. I have a history in the city of Syracuse. You know, my great-grandfather was a Syracuse fireman. My history and foundations, and that's what we put first. As well as Greg has a lead service, Corey has a lead service. We all live in this city. We all feel the same pain. We all heard the same message, and we're all concerned as you. And that's why we put our feet to the ground, and we went out and found the problem. And we're going to correct that. And I could tell you, I can't tell you how many homes I went to and knocked on everyone's door, and they were shocked to see the commissioner of the city coming to their door and delivering the message and getting the retest and getting them, giving them a picture and getting them involved. Because we as a team care about the water and we care about the city.
Commissioner.
So I'm 100% confident.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, at this time, we're going to open the floor up to the members of the public. I have 18 cards. I'm going to call your name. You're going to have 2 minutes to ask your question to the members of the administration here in the city of Syracuse. There is a timer, correct, Brian? There will be a timer. I'm asking you kindly once that the moment you hear the beeps, please stop and allow us to answer your questions. And if there's more time at the end, we will revisit and come back to you. Please be respectful of that one asset I have of you. The first person that I have on the card would be Rich Pacholski. Mr. Batman. Okay.
I used to get 3 minutes.
It's 2 minutes now, Rich. I'm sorry.
You know, it's a real problem. The public should be allowed to talk. We listen to the folks here talk. Public needs to talk. Councilor Majoke, on Tuesday at 7:45, shots were fired over on South and Tallman. Several of them, and it's under investigation. There's a corner store over there. Anyway, I just want you to know, shots were fired. It's a serious problem in our community. I'm more interested in the filters. It's about time 6,000 plus filters are going out. It should have happened a long time ago. We don't trust people from City Hall. So give us the filters, get more filters, and let the roll begin. You know, there is the problem of lead service, lead pipes, faucets that are with lead. You know, we need to move on. But we need to get the filters out the door in the community and put the word out. Again, I'm not going to beat up the bush. Get the filters out.
Thank you, Rich. All right. Number 2, Oceana Fair.
Hi, I'm Oceana Fair. So some of you know me, some of you I'm new to. I was here when we passed the lead ordinance. My story should have ended there. Shouldn't be back before you. Now, the city in Onondaga County failed to recognize the CDC's 3.5 micrograms per deciliter in a child's blood. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and it doesn't mean that you can't recognize it, because New York City does. We choose not to. My house went through the city's HUD remediation program when my granddaughter tested positive. Onondaga County came out and cleared my home. But what Onondaga County failed to do, and Deb Lewis from Onondaga County's lead program admitted, is they don't test the water. They don't even go to look to see if you have a lead service line. So when my new grandbaby came, who was born after that remediation, started coming in with a 3.5 microgram deciliter of blood, lead in her blood, now I'm concerned. I'm a lead advocate. Why is she testing positive? She's in my home. Where's this lead coming from? And we couldn't figure it out until several years later, now that she's 5, and the city breaks that there's all these lead service lines. I come home from a lead conference, run downstairs, and what's in my basement? A lead service line. This was preventable. Her testing positive was preventable. My older grandchild should have been the last child in my home to test positive for lead. So for the county to say that no child has tested positive for lead by water, they don't know that because they don't test the water. I would stop repeating that stat. They don't do it. So I'm asking this council to do what's right, to take care of the water problem, declare the state of emergency because the funding is there. My organization will make sure that every councilor sitting here gets that information to review for themselves, to make sure that filters get out to everybody that has a lead service line. Because under the current, what do we think? That children just drink water at their homes? If that child is visiting your home, you may not have children, but she might have a glass of water at your house or something made with that glass of water.
Thank you, Ms. Fair. Is there a response to her at all? Okay.
I have one question. Ms. Fair, what year was that when your first child was
She initially tested positive in 2017. We finally got set up for the remediation in 2019. And now here I am again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Kira Van Brackle.
Good evening, y'all.
Good evening.
My name is Kiara Van Brackle. So the CDC continues to submit that there is no safe level of lead. So anyone here saying that we know you have lead also knows that you are unsafe in your community. So in Syracuse, more than 10% of children were tested lead and diagnosed with lead poisoning. But this is from the lead in paint that the city claims that is the main issue of the lead here. However, those who are poisoned were not, their water, as we just know, that were not tested by ingesting. I want to know if anybody here can first define what an outlier is. Can my time pause so somebody can answer that question?
Well, we'll answer the question after you state your statements, and then we'll
Okay,
answer the question.
so if there are any scientists here on this board, an outlier actually is a data point that is different, as you have been stating, historically from other data. That doesn't mean that that outlier, that data set is not a significant point. It should mean that there is a natural deviance away from the data that has already been presenting. So leaning on the history that the Syracuse has as a city in their data is not valid in any science or any data and analysis. So I actually don't need you to define that, since I just did. Do you know the health effects of orthophosphate? We have orthophosphate in our water now. It is generally food safe. If we add more of that, we have continued weakened bones. We have continued calcium deposits in our hearts, lungs, and eyes. We have added kidney disease. If you understand, if the city has put forth the public education in the ways that they said that they did, you would know that those are also the symptoms of lead poisoning, aside from the eyes, but it does affect vision at higher levels, those levels that our people working on the highway will experience. Thank you so much.
No problem. Is there a regulated amount of the phosphate that we should be utilizing for overabundance?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say any changes that we would make to the levels of orthophosphate would be in partnership with the Onondaga County Health Department and the State Health Department.
And not.
And we're well under.
Under the regulations.
Okay.
But increasing that would increase other health effects.
Correct.
That are compounded by the lead in the paint and the water. Thanks, y'all.
For full disclosure to everyone, thank you, honey. Kiara, thank you. For full disclosure, the council asked for this because we're concerned just as much as you are, right? And we want to make sure that everyone's safe. You know, it is so important. That's why we're here to have it. So I just want to put that out there, full disclosure. This is why this meeting, that's why the chair, Mayor, called it, because we are very concerned, and it's very important that we get the answers. We are citizens just like you guys are. So I just want you guys to know we're finding out information at the same time. Okay? Thank you.
Please remit me if I pronounce this name incorrectly. I believe it's Moad Jugasha. Forgive me if I pronounce that incorrectly.
Moade Jagusa.
Thank you.
Why not call a state of emergency? Maternal mortality rates, disability rates, and violent crime rates are all associated with high lead rates. And in 2023, the maternal mortality in Syracuse was just as high as in Gaza, after Gaza had already been under military blockade for 17 years. How is that not emergent? 6,000 water filters is not enough. It would be cheaper to give every family in this city a free industrial water filter, not a Brita filter because they do not filter lead, than it would be to fix the lead pipes in the city. This city has a history of segregation and apartheid and genocide against Africans and the poor. Today, Syracuse is the 6th most segregated city in the country. African communities are the majority of communities in flood zones, and with Micron planning to fill in 344 acres of wetlands, that flooding will likely worsen. Do we not think that that will have an impact on the lead rate exposure in our community? Give us all free industrial filters, give us funds to repaint lead houses and fix the lead pipes. This is a violation of our civil rights and our human rights. We are people and we deserve to live life lead-free.
The Brita filters were chosen.
So, I mean, I think those are the brand of filter that will remove the most amount of lead from, I mean, that's what the Britas do. I mean,
We've
but
specified a particular model that is
particular model of
certified
it.
as lead-free by the EPA and accepted by
Right.
the EPA for this use.
right,
So we're going based upon regulatory reasons from the EPA.
right. And they would go to the homes that have lead services, whereas not every home has lead service.
Okay. Okay.
What's the cost? What's the cost in comparison with that and the industrial filter? That is there a cost comparison?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I believe this is Blian Mark.
Hello, my name is Brian Mark. I'm a lifelong resident of Syracuse, and I believe you were the man who mentioned water. The money has been provided for lead service replacement before to the city. Is that correct?
I was referencing the current funding of 22 point. I don't know what you're referring to.
Well, has the city received money in the past from any government entities for lead service replacement?
I have to rely on the commissioner.
Right, I can't answer that right now for you.
So this is the first time the city has ever received any money from the government for lead service replacement?
I think we don't know the answer
Don't
to
have
that.
Yeah, we don't have the answer.
I don't know whether
Well,
the city
do
has
you?
ever received.
Well, I remember seeing media statements saying the city's receiving money from the government to combat lead problems within the city many years before this. So the city has received some money. Am I correct in saying that?
I believe we would have to specify rather if it was for paint services versus the water.
Well,
But in respects to that, the reason why that we are here today and the reason why we're explaining everything that we're doing now is to ensure from our commissioner and also the staff here in administration that with the funds that we are receiving, we are going to tackle the issues that we have within our lead water.
There were also some funds
Just
that were
the history of the city clerk helping me, I'll just point out, certainly the city has received funding in various points from the federal government and state governments for all kinds of water infrastructure and probably also for water service replacement work. Yes. What's so?
Okay,
But there were also some funds a few years ago that were placed to do the Lead Safe Coalition, and through this coalition, there's a lot of work that is being done. Oshana, you're part of that, right? The Lead Safe Coalition from the county. No, but with lead, you know. So they
Just to
do
save time,
study-
stipulate,
it's the
yes, we've
same.
received funding. Okay?
We'll say yes, we received funding.
For water service replacements.
Okay, I applied 4 years ago to have my lead service replaced, and I was approved for this. There was available funding for lead service replacement when I applied for this. I was approved. That was 4 years ago. And as time went on, I asked people within the water department, well, what's happening? Why isn't my service getting replaced? And I was told that money that was given for lead service replacement was allotted to other projects other than lead service replacement by the former commissioner of our water department. Do you people know anything about that?
May I ask you how long ago this was?
I applied 4 years ago. 4 years ago. And I was approved for a lead service replacement through a grant from the government. Now, when I asked why hasn't it been replaced, I was told the former commissioner of the water department allocated that money to other projects other than the lead service replacement. I would like the common council and the city auditor to look in the former performance of the past commissioner of the water department to see where that money truly went. How about that? That's all I have to say.
I think my mic cut out. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me now? Okay, perfect. Our city auditor, did you hear that? Okay, thank you. Next, we would have Jamie Schultz. Jamie, oh, there we go.
Hi. I had a question in regards to the testing. So there have been previous incidences in...
closer.
Sorry. So there have been previous incidences in cities where increased construction have resulted in damage of the chemical barrier formed by the osteophosphate, which lodged lead particles into the water. Is there any correlation between the increased spike in lead in Syracuse and the increased construction?
So in all the construction neighborhoods where we're doing main replacement, lead replacement, we give the homeowners, because we're disrupting their service line, we give them a Brita filter when we replace their line. That's part of the EPA requirements. So when we replace their service line, we give them a Brita filter.
So if that's the construction that you're referring to, then we do provide Brita filters to folks, but I think that's about the extent of the construction correlation.
Okay. Secondarily, as far as increased lead levels go, are there any funding or programs available to assist people with increased lead levels?
That'd be the county, or can you answer that question?
I believe so.
What kind of funding?
Oh, an excellent question. I guess, are there any assistive programs?
To remediate lead within a home?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, thank you.
There are lead paint hazard mitigation programs that provide assistance.
I see. Thank you.
But regarding water, we're not aware of it.
Okay.
To piggyback off of her question, will we be proactive in possibly developing something or some type of program to assist outside of the lead paint? I guess that was another concern of members here. Outside of the paint help that we have, will we do something for the water as well in the near future? Or
We are obviously paying for all of the, you as councilors have authorized bonding and have approved funding to enable us to repair the public and private side right through to the meter. Regarding the interior of people's properties, we can begin to talk with state and federal funding sources about whether there's anything that the government would be able to do. I think there would be questions raised about government intrusion into people's homes for such work, but it's something that we would certainly be glad to inquire about.
Thank you.
I was talking more in regards to like assistance with any medical issues that might develop as far as in regards to lead exposure. Like, is there any assistance with like medical care?
Yeah, I mean, not through the city, but I don't know whether there are programs available. Not that any that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Devin Williams. Devon, sorry. Please forgive me.
I got you. And please, I know what y'all said about the 2 minutes, but he doesn't know how to tell time. So I will try and keep him as close to 2 minutes as possible, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Go ahead. Unzip it. Go ahead.
Don't be shy.
Hi, my name is Devon. I was lead affected when I was 2. And this is my twin brother who was shot. And
Take your time.
I have ADHD and he wouldn't like to talk because he has a bad stutter and the water pipes has lead in it and I'm afraid to get lead poisoned again.
How old are you?
8.
8 years old. And what school do you go to?
Major.
Fraser.
Fraser.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, Darlene Medley. Oh, is that you? Oh, okay. All right.
Hello, everybody. My name is Darlene Metley. I am one of the co-chairs of Families for Lead Freedom Now and the chair of Family Voices, which is a part of the CNY coalition that you guys were talking about. I keep hearing all these words, right? I'm like they stick for some reason. And the biggest thing right now tonight that I heard was trust, right? And I heard one of the counselors ask how you were going to gain the trust back of your community. And I heard you respond, right? But all of you guys are failing because you keep sitting at these tables, holding these meetings, but guess who you don't never include? The people that have the lived experience, the people that are actually living through it. WIC, giving filters out at WIC is not a great idea. You only have to go every 3 months to collect a check. And now, from what I'm understanding, you don't even have to go. They're just uploading it for you. So technically speaking, you only go every 2 years. So who's going to get the filter in time? Then if you're doing it through the school district, how are we going to know that the pre-K students, they're going to be able to take them things home and give it to their parents? Like, it's other ways, it's other means. You have grassroots organizations who are trusted out in the community, whose feet have been on the ground since day one. The minute I found out my twins was lead poisoned, I decided to educate myself and find out what was going on, how I can be a better mom, because unfortunately, my city failed my children. So I therefore then had to step in. I'm RRP certified. You would think that you would be reaching out to me and saying, hey, we have this code inspector over here, he's going over here. You would think that you would have an affected family member somewhere along the lines to help y'all navigate. Because y'all just showing up at doors to people, first of all, we're running away, we're scared. A lot of us are doing things that we even shouldn't be doing because we're so nervous to even allow our children to be tested for lead, because if they do come back lead affected, then guess what happens? Now we got CPS at our door. You understand? Because now we done called the code enforcement. So now our landlord now knows that, oh, we can use this retaliation piece of Child Protective Services. I'm about to end it up. I'm going to ask y'all, please, declare a state of emergency. My organization has worked very hard, very hard. We sat down, we talked, we understand how the declaration of emergency can be declared. The funding is there. It is not as treacherous as they're trying to make it seem. We can get this done. We really can, but we all have to come together as a community. We can't keep having these backdoor meetings and no. We all have to come together and make this happen, because right now, our children and our elderly community is being depleted like no tomorrow. Our crime rate is skying. Look at the maps. If you look at the maps and you put the dots on top, don't they all overlap? Should open your eyes and tell you something. Please declare a state of emergency. We need it.
Murphy.
Good evening. I'd like to thank you all for the presentation and all the information that you've provided thus far. I live just outside the city of Syracuse, but we have gotten involved with this issue through our social actions ministry at our church. And when we look at the issue of lead poisoning in Syracuse, it is very disheartening. Syracuse, as to my awareness, Syracuse first declared a war on lead over 50 years ago. And Certainly, there were well-meaning people, and no one in this room is responsible for what local government failed to do over the last 50 years. However, right now, we have a chance to lead from the front and really take aggressive action to address this situation. I have to say, from a public relations standpoint, the city's initial response to these the water testing results was really disheartening because it seemed to downplay the effort. You have given us an explanation of what might have happened, but there's no proof or data of what happened. How do we know that the water wasn't run before the sample was taken? There's no detail in the data that was provided. There is absolutely a crisis of confidence, but you in this room have the opportunity to do the right thing. This is morally outrageous. No level of lead in a child's body is safe. We know that. Lead poisoning is entirely preventable. Children are our most vulnerable citizens and residents. We should be protecting them. We should be doing everything possible to give them an opportunity at a vibrant future. They are our future. If I can't appeal to your sense of moral outrage, perhaps I can appeal to your sense of fiduciary responsibility. The cost going forward of not addressing this issue is going to balloon and skyrocket. Children are being poisoned, and that issue affects all the social programs we put in place to address the effects of lead poisoning. I beg you to do everything within your power to replace these lead service lines as soon as possible, as fast as the city of Newark did it, because our future in the city of Syracuse is at stake. Thank you.
Ms. Murphy, if you could still stand up just to answer your one question. Commissioner, could you explain the process of how you're testing the lead water? Are you opening the faucet, taking a sample of that, or are you allowing the water to run and then testing it to determine whether or not it's lead free or not?
We give them directions because it's self-administered. The homeowner takes the test. We give them directions. On the directions, it says first draw in the morning. After the water has sat, take a first draw out of your faucet, kitchen or bathroom. And then they fill out a documentation that is new, something we just did on this last round of testing, to make sure the testing is being done by the homeowner, what time they used the water, their last time they used the water, and when they took the draw. So we have an idea of what, the sampling is. They fill it up, they put it on their porch, we pick it up in the morning.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that.
Just to give you the process.
I do have one question. There were 100 to 120 homes that were all tested this past year, but it was all on a voluntary basis. And I hear that landlords of the most dilapidated homes in the cities, they don't have to allow for water testing. Is that true? It's on a voluntary basis.
It's all voluntary if you have a lead service.
So the problem is being underrepresented. I am certain of that.
So just so we know, on this last round of testing, we went out to the resident. We didn't reach out to the homeowner. We went to homes that answered the door,
Right.
and we asked them to test.
Okay.
We didn't hand it off to landlords or property management or any of that. We went directly to the homeowners and asked them to test for it.
Thank you for clarifying that.
I went back to the residents on the retest. The last round of testing, we went to a majority of the homes and asked them to test.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, forgive me if I pronounce this name wrong. I believe it's Levon de Felice. Did I say that wrong? A little bit.
It's Luann, it's just Luann.
Oh, Luann. Oh, it's not a V, it's a U.
That's a V,
I'm sorry.
yes. Yes, and ditto to everything that Maureen just said, because that was some of what I was also concerned about and feel in my heart. And I guess I'm from outside of the city as well, but I became aware of this issue about a year ago, and I'm just appalled that it's still an issue and there's so much resistance to it, whether it's from all different areas, not just the water. And if these stories don't touch your heart, I don't know, they touch mine. And I don't know how many children does it take to declare a state of emergency. And in my mind, the testing, 100 how many is 100 families out of all these service lines? 14,000? I mean, I don't understand how that could be a possible, accurate, or a legitimate statistic out of all the service lines out there. And now we're finding out, some of them weren't done properly. They're done voluntarily. They maybe not be done by landlords that choose not to. I mean, our problem has to be way bigger than we know about. And I'm very disappointed in the city in trying to disprove or disqualify the statistics or the information and blame it on that. We don't have to blame anybody. Let's just fix it. I mean, how can you not want to fix it? I don't understand. We're all connected. Any child in the city, any child in the suburb is just as valuable as any other child. And I can't keep going on. I'm going to keep with the taking action on this issue until it gets resolved. We don't want to wait 5 years. It's been too many years already. And I don't understand there's a resistance about it. My question was, why is there resistance about declaring a state of emergency? It's complicated. It's a little more challenging. I'm not sure. I heard some words like that. But I think if we get more statistics, I bet we can declare a state of emergency or even before that, because I don't understand why you don't want to fix the problem. And that would be one way to get more assistance in here more quickly. I appreciate what you've been doing, but yes, let's declare a state of emergency now.
1 second. We can, I don't know if the chief policy officer will leave to determine this factor, but can we get an answer from the water commissioner, whoever, as to why or what regulates the level of a state of emergency? I don't know. I think you might have said it earlier today, but just to reiterate it.
The regulatory standard is the EPA guidance, and we follow, as we are required to, as a municipality, the EPA guidance. And so the data that we're showing you and the facts about what occurred in the first half of the year don't support an exceedance of the EPA action level and thus, Councilor, an emergency. We agree that this issue must be taken on with urgency. I wouldn't accept the premise that we don't want to fix it. I would counter that strongly and say, in fact, we do want to fix it. In fact, we are doubling the speed at which the EPA requires cities to accomplish this work.
Maybe we need to go beyond the EPA
and I agree, and we will
protect our children.
We will seek any additional funding available to do that and continue to pursue it.
Thank you.
That is your point of view, but not the point of view of those who are involved every day with those funding programs.
But we don't understand that
NRDC is not a government agency.
Thank you, Mr. DeFusi. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I don't understand that explanation. I don't think it's appropriate.
So those that would make the funding available don't agree that declaring a state of emergency is going to free up any funding. The funding would come from the state through the federal government, and it doesn't appear from the information and the conversations we've had that declaring an emergency would free up funding any faster. That's coming from the funding agencies.
Thank you. Please forgive me if I pronounce this one incorrectly. I don't know if it's Chai or Chi Tugmai. I probably butchered that one too. How do you pronounce it?
Chie Togami.
Chie Togami.
Yes.
I would have never got that. Okay. All right.
So I am a new resident of Syracuse, and when I moved here, I found out that my house has a lead service line. I moved here through Harrisburg, but before that, previously I lived in the city of Pittsburgh, which has dealt, I don't know if you're aware, but has dealt with a very similar thing, like so many of our large cities with aging infrastructure. And when I sought to find a way to test my water, I looked on the websites and I found out that there was only one lab that was listed in this county. I called that lab and I was told they were shutting down and that they were no longer processing any samples. I also called the number, which said you could call this number to get your water tested. I called 6 times. I called, I think it was the state health department. I never received a single call back, and I understand that this is the city and that's the state, but this is what residents are dealing with, and I'm just a brand new person in the city, and it's very disappointing. So I just want to say that we need to find a better way to get people's water tested, and we need agencies that are responsive to citizens. Secondly, I'm also a researcher, and I'm a professor, and one of the things that I study is environmental justice, and this is an environmental justice issue, first and foremost, right? We know the people who are low income, who are of certain races, are less likely to get service lines replaced, and I understand there's an equity score that you're using, and that's great, but I think that crises like this mean that we need to revisit that potentially and look at other ways, places we may have missed, this being the most equitable way, because justice delayed is justice denied. And no more children should be sickened, and no more pregnant women should have to worry about this. So we need to make sure that we are prioritizing it in the most equitable way possible. And there are many cities around the country that have already looked at this, so I think we need to be reopening this issue and making sure that our model is the best model. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was more a speech, sorry, but I guess how can we expect to hear how to get water tested, and so that everybody in this room who's concerned about this issue can get their water tested and get their levels and know that?
The information that's currently on the city website at the address on your fact sheet has available current sources that are processing tests.
Okay.
The information you might have seen from a little while back, we have learned from that supplier is no longer doing that work, but in concert with the county health department, we have updated information at that lead-free Syracuse site that gets you information on testing services that are active. We also noted earlier that if you're interested in joining the city's sampling pool, which you will not be charged for sampling, you can contact the water department at the number on the fact sheet. And we can add you to that sampling pool, which will again be conducting sampling in January.
Is there a limit to how many households can
We'll
be?
accept as many who want to join.
Okay, you heard it.
Do you have it?
Great.
Do you have it?
Yeah. I'll take
The question was asked, how quickly will that be processed? That process will likely take several months because it involves processing multiple samples, but it will be released to the individual homes. You get your results as a participant. You get it personally directly to you, and then be advised if you participate that we will make that data available publicly for others to view because it is a matter of public interest. Just
I get it.
the question was asked, is it available to renters? And I don't believe we would limit the participation to a property owner as opposed to an occupant of an
And
apartment.
so are we going to increase the number of homes being tested or just increase the pool of potential homes being tested?
So right now, we're working on something where we could try to get everyone that wants to be tested. We're looking to change things up.
I think that's
right. We don't offer that right now
Right.
today, but we're working on something to get where anyone that wants a lead test, a test for the test their water for lead, we will make sure they get one.
They should call the water department, right? So for the listeners that are listening and are not here and do not have the paperwork, they call the water department's number, right?
We're looking to get a program up and running by early January.
All right. The next person I have is Kathleen Koss. I hope I pronounced that one correctly. Hello.
question I want to ask on behalf of a friend. I'm old, he's old. He's a retired.
You don't look old at all.
He's a retired guidance counselor. He's a retired guidance counselor. Sorry, it's my watch. And apparently had contacted somebody at City Hall a couple years ago because he wanted to be a lead inspector and never got a response. So how would he become a lead inspector? What can he do? The people that go around and check the lead levels.
We don't have a lead inspector in the water department.
David is right there.
Who's David?
David's sitting right there.
Oh.
There's your card. There's your answer right there. Okay.
And then my second, it's not really a question. The only reason I knew about this meeting tonight was because I stay up all night because I can't sleep and I read the legal notices in the newspaper. And that's where I saw the notice about this meeting. I also read Syracuse.com and I read a lot. But I had no idea that you could just randomly call and ask for somebody to come test lead in your water. I live in DeWitt, and many years ago they warned us that our water was bad, so we're lucky enough to have been able to buy bottled water all this for like 36 years. But you really need to communicate better to people that they can just call and ask for help, because I don't know how you would do that, but I know a lot of people they don't know.
So up until this point, we didn't think anyone needed help with the water. You know,
Well, we've had the dirtiest lake in the country for decades.
Yeah, but that's not where our water comes
and
from.
then we
Drinking
got
water.
cited by the DEC twice because we were
Our water
pouring
doesn't
raw
come from
sewage
Onondaga
into-
Lake, though. It comes from Skinny
We're
Atlas.
talking drinking water.
Yeah, drinking
We never
water.
thought until we had this exceedance that we knew lead was an issue.
Mm-hmm.
That's, like I said, that's national. You know, that's everywhere. But as far as our water, we didn't have a hotline for any concerns about lead or Brita filters or testing. We had a hard time getting 100 people that wanted to test.
Right.
That was, you know,
Really?
that was hard to get 100 people that wanted to test.
It's hard to believe because of all the little kids that are.
I agree.
Yeah.
So what's the plan for letting people
So
know?
we have a new line, we have a new email address for
But
people.
how do you let people know that exists?
I mean, we'll use the channels that we use. We have social media, we have community meetings, we do mailings. If anybody has any suggestions of community organizations we could come talk to, we'll go wherever people want us to go. I mean, we're, open to other people's thoughts on how we can get the word out.
Maybe on the TV stations and.
Yeah.
I realize TV's old school, but YouTube, maybe through the schools. Do the schools announce this?
So, I mean, when we deliver the water filters to the students, there will be information included in there about the issue so that we can try and make sure that families have the information that they need about the service.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I just this whole emergency thing, we have $30 million with the bonding as far as that goes. With the capacity that you know about, Commissioner, in this area, in order to address this issue, is there any way, would more money facilitate it quicker? Or is it a manpower issue,
Any
or is
money's
it a
a good
capacity
thing.
issue?
It's a process. You know, we're not Newark. We're a small city. We have less contractors in this city. So we're going to have to compete with everyone else to draw them in.
Because every other city's got this issue.
Every other city has the same issue as Syracuse has. Fortunately, we have a lot older homes in some other cities, so we have the lead issues through, paint and stuff like that. But as far as if they gave us all the money tomorrow, we wouldn't be able to replace all the lead services tomorrow. You know what I mean? We are going to take we're going to go as fast as we can. We have actually, as a team, other projects that we had in mind, we put the brakes on. We're putting all that money into lead replacements. We're making this a priority. We take this as serious as everyone sitting here, but declaring an emergency, then the whole country could do the same thing because we're all in the same boat. We're going to get the funding. We're going to take every avenue, try to get every grant, Every dollar the city can put towards lead replacements, nothing's gonna slow us down.
Commissioner, I have a question. So I thank you for that information. So I know you're saying that our levels are not high enough for the EPA and all that, but what would be the biggest, why would it be a big difference if we did call a state of emergency? How would that, you don't think that would push a rush on things? Make people move faster?
So I don't know if we can declare a state of emergency on it, because per EPA regulations, we're not in an emergency. So we believe, like every other city in this nation, in the United States, we believe we're in the same emergency. We want to remove all the lead, but to declare something that the EPA is telling us not to declare, I don't think it's an emergency.
Do they don't determine what we declare though, do they?
They don't, but these people that we talk to, declaring it's not going to change the funding.
So is it about the data analysis? Do they go on that?
So I mean,
to
the
qualify or
data
not?
is going to drive our decision about, and will, I would presumably drive the EPA's decision as well. We operate under the regulations of the EPA and the State Health Department and the Onondaga County Health Department, and so far, it is not apparent to us that declaring a state of emergency is going to really move the needle. To Rob's point, we're reallocating money to this. We're getting this done as quickly as we can. I understand it's not fast enough for folks, but to Rob's point, if somebody came in here with a check, we couldn't replace all the lead services tomorrow. It's going to be a process, and we're getting it done as quickly as we can.
So if I give you my water sample, how long will it take before I know? How many months will it take for me to know?
You would know within 2 to 3 weeks.
If you went to go get it tested.
Okay.
If you gave it to us to test for you, you did a sample testing for us, you gave us your bottle, and we'd submit it to the lab, we would let you know as soon as we got the results. We wouldn't make it public until the final
Okay. So it
testing
take
was
about
done.
2 to 3 weeks there.
Yeah, that's
Roughly, if you're part of the
Roughly.
sampling pool.
if you're part of the same.
Right. But to the commissioner's point, it would become public once all the results are finalized.
All right. Keith Costello.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you for everybody who came out today. Thank you guys so much for your time in putting this together. I know this is probably not easy for a lot of you. You've been under intense scrutiny. You've been under intense scrutiny, and I know that that's probably very difficult to maintain your cool and calm and being collected throughout all of this. I really appreciate a lot of the feedback that the community has had here. I'm not going to repeat a lot of things that they said. There's a lot of stats that I could mention here. I'm not even going to bother with that either. I just want to ask, specifically, we talked about having additional sources of funding. What other additional sources of funding have we looked at? In terms of the contractors, obviously there's an occupancy. How busy are they right now? Are they at 75% occupancy? So we could, if we had additional money, steal 25% more time from them to apply to this. I understand that we're short approximately $100 million. I understand there at the county level, there was a $100 million surplus a couple years ago that has been allocated into an aquarium. I'm curious whether or not we can borrow against those monies from the county to pay them back in the future over time, as this money might come in from other sources like the federal government, or just even if that doesn't come in, from the return on investment they'll have from more productive members of society, from the reduction in crime rates, from the reduction of students who are special needs students, from the police actions, from everything. That's my very simple basic questions.
I mean, we're seeking funding sources from state partners, from federal partners, every place we can, every agency that we can. And it's not as if the city itself wouldn't bond for the service as well. So
I'm sorry, can you be specific? Which agencies have you applied for at which level?
We're referred to the bipartisan infrastructure law. The State Environmental Facilities Corporation are the primary sources that direct funding to projects like this.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, and again, the city bonds for projects.
How much is available? I'm sorry to interrupt. How much is available on an annual basis? How often have we applied? How often can you apply? When was the last time we did apply? What did they say?
We apply annually, and we have discussions on literally a week in, week out basis with these partners looking to find available funding.
And the outcomes were? They gave us $20 million and we can ask next year?
22.8 for the previous year, and we hope to see the same return or greater in the coming years.
Okay.
If we could control those four sources of funding, you can imagine we would.
Oh, of course, yeah. What's the possibility of using the county funds, just out of curiosity that I just mentioned before? Is there any kind of law that would prevent us from borrowing against them, for instance?
That would be a question for the county.
Yeah, we don't have no control
I don't
over
think,
that.
yeah, we don't have control over the county funding, so that would
No,
be.
of course not. I'm just,
Yeah.
have anyone, we as the city pursued that?
There is.
Has there been a discussion?
We have, I don't believe we've asked the county to reallocate their money, but if the county decides to do so,
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Kayla Lewis.
Hi, good evening. I just have a couple quick questions as echoing what everyone else has said. There's a lot of stuff I deleted that's already been mentioned. I want to begin by mentioning that my husband grew up on Tip Hill, and he tested high for lead levels in his blood when he was 6 years old. He is now 28. So I guess my first question is, how many more years will we be having this conversation? Second, I do not want to minimize the greater impact of lead poisoning on children as opposed to on adults. If water testing results are as inconsistent as the council and as the commission has alluded to, has the city considered offering blood testing clinics to include adults and not just children to get a wider understanding of the real health impacts on the community? And third and lastly, has the city considered having distribution centers for reverse osmosis filling stations in neighborhoods for community members who are concerned about the water being contaminated with lead and orthophosphate coming into their homes?
The last one I have not heard. I don't think there's been conversation about that. The second one, the county health department generally oversees the testing of blood, so the city's not directly involved in that. So I would defer to the health department. I don't know if there's any ways for adults to get tested.
I don't believe there's any testing for adults. I would probably have you discuss that with your care provider.
And so that would be reliant on my personal money.
I'd have to check on that.
Okay, so you're not sure if there's no.
There's childhood lead testing, yes.
There's just childhood. There's just children for lead testing, and you said that goes up to age 6, I believe.
Up to age 6.
That's so. I'm just thinking about these children here who came up and spoke, and I believe if I'm not mistaken, they said they're 8, so they are ineligible. Is that correct? Right.
There's information on childhood blood testing on the Onondaga County Health Department website, a whole section on childhood lead poisoning that would give you eligibility on the ages. None of us here are speaking for eligibility for blood level testing.
So it seems like if I got pregnant, I would probably have a better chance. But me right now, I'm not a child, so I'm just kind of wondering what. So I guess I'll go back to the reverse osmosis. Is that I know that you mentioned that that's not been a conversation. Is that something that could be discussed in the future?
We can absolutely discuss it. Yeah.
Okay.
It just hasn't been as of yet.
Okay. I believe that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jacqueline?
Good evening, I'm Jacqueline Lassonde. I've been here 8 years, and it's disappointing, it's dangerous, it's ridiculous. It's just a circular conversation that continues to be had. I inquired about lead. We purchased a land bank house, lead pipe running throughout the house. We were told we'd have to do, there was no funding unless we had a child, which I have grandchildren, which I would in no way endanger them and make them test dummies for this kind of these kind of programs. And so we paid for it. It went on our taxes, all of the things, because of course it wasn't eligible. There was no funding. Still, we're back here again and continue to be back here as lead levels rise. We're talking about school to pipeline, prison system. We can talk about lead pipes to prison pipeline, prison system. That's where we're at. That's really where we're at. And it's really, I go to a lot of meetings. I'm an advocate. It makes me shake. We have common counselors. They need to have meetings, more meetings, not once in a while meetings, because the answers I've heard here are almost like you guys just got the memo that this is a meeting. What kind of Brita filters? What kind? Did you know Elite are the only ones that actually deal with some lead, not all lead? Would it have been a good idea to maybe bring a Brita professional here, an actual professional, not just pluck some name out of the sky because you don't represent Brita? And that's the
We
problem.
consulted with Brita directly on our purchase
Okay.
and specified Elite model.
And that's great. You consulted with them. We prefer to hear it because there's a trust issue. When on our off time, when we have off time, we do a lot of get out the vote. We talk about advocacy. We talk about transparency. We talk about accountability. You are accountable to these folks to bring the persons in front of us that can speak to it, because you've been speaking the whole time. Oh, the data's flawed. You mean to tell me you're asking for volunteers to test for lead? Every house that is in the city of Syracuse should be tested, let's say just for kicks, because volunteers, and then you struggle with how many volunteers because you haven't communicated with people. You just come out of nowhere with it. Why should we trust you? And then the scapegoat happens. The two people that unfortunately got suspended or whatever. Scapegoat all day long because they have something to gain by making sure the levels go up. These things just don't make it make sense, because it doesn't. So you hear all of these stories and it's tragic, and you have the news and all of this, and when was the next time we're going to hear from any of you? Or when is Common Council? I present you with a dilemma. If you're not meeting with the constituents in the evening, the energy that you have when you're coming out and wanting our vote, do that, because to hear this kind of behavior in this room is embarrassing. And this is not half the city of Syracuse in here. It's not. And people telling you how they didn't even know. I knew from the newspaper, from a news article online, that communication, that outreach part is a problem. Seriously. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Peter King.
I think Peter might have left. Oh, there he is.
Good evening, Common Council and people. I'm going to take a little different note on this. I'm going to back down from the emergency question. Maybe so, maybe not. But I think that this is a really complex problem. It's a hard problem, and the city's been working hard at it. I mean, we may or may not agree with what you've done, but you've certainly been taking efforts at it. But I think that just in observing, I've lived here since around 2000, in observing a lot of problems in society in general as well, like this, that are complex. They're hard to discuss because you get to a conflict point very soon where it's us against them, or however the decision makers, rightly or wrongly, are on the crux here. So the one casualty from that, I think, is that you might ignore points that you haven't seen before. The community might not see quite the points you've seen before. Things that are plain out in the open, but you may not have considered. So I don't know. I'll try and be brief here, but my question for the city is basically you've looked at these outlier samples a lot, getting to the data. Have you considered the question of non-lead pipes upstream of these pipes breaking themselves? Because this is an antiquated system, as Mayor Miner pointed out in 2014. We had 100 more than 100 water main breaks in that year. And she said, this is just, we're kicking the can down the road. And this is not to blame the city because it's very expensive. That's an awful lot of pipes in the basement that you got to fix, right? And so my question is, have you considered the fact that, soil water can enter into the pipe that's broken? This is a map from a 2012 study of a long series of studies by Dr. David Johnson of SUNY ESF. I can give you a list of the studies and send you that study to anybody in this room if you want. The point is that he and his students linked soil lead closely with kids' blood lead, and this was after a lot of close examination looking at seasonality in lead poisoning. And this is something that the community nor has the city really considered much. But I'll keep my question more simple at this point, just to the pipe question.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Soil with lead in it getting into the pipes and somehow affecting the test results. Is that right, Peter?
Yeah, and
Okay.
this is the point of creative problem solving. If I could understand why I hadn't thought of that. If you haven't thought of that, you might think about, would it be useful to allocate at least some money or attention to those pipes? In my neighborhood, Meadowcrook, we had 2 water main breaks the past year. I think one was somewhat nearby on Beach Street. The other one was just about a block away. After and during both, I turned on the water and I found soil coming in. I saved
Some sediment, yeah.
It's just pretty basic. You've all seen that.
Okay. All right. Yes, we can look into that. Thank you, Peter.
Mr. King, can you please make sure you get that information to our secretary? One of them, Nathan, is around.
I'd like to send you a lot lot of information
Yep.
and data. And, yeah.
You can see the
You
two
can make sure
gentlemen right by the
he's
door
right
over
there
there.
to get your email. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Murray. I see that. There you go.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having this forum because I'm new to this and I'm learning. I'm in the process of purchasing a home on the south side, and I do have lead pipes there. So my question is for Corey and the commissioner, because I don't think I've heard this. So again, this is new to me. How are you all picking and deciding whose pipes get replaced by the year? Because you said that EPA is giving you 10 years, but you're trying to do it in 5. So how are you all determining who gets to get their pipes replaced first, vice versa?
Right. So, we're going to start with the 27 homes that are located, 2,700 homes, that are located all throughout the city. So they're on the north side, they're on the near west side, they're on the south side, on the east side. So they're all over the city where we have previously replaced the public side, but did not replace the private side. So we're going to go back and replace the private side. So we're going to start there. Then, as the commissioner mentioned, we do the inventory so that we know the universe of homes that do have these lead services. Then, our plan is to share with the community. And I can't answer you right now in terms of where, neighborhoods are going to fall, but to share with the community, these are the different phases, and this is what phase that you will fall in, to give you some sense of a timeline of how soon we can replace it. So that will be determined by, again, the equity score, so that we make sure we're doing it equitable. I'm sure there will be some economies of scale. So if the contractor's already mobilized in a certain area, it makes just more sense, to do the entire block. So, are there other infrastructure projects that are happening that give us an opportunity while the road is excavated to try and replace it, even though, excavation is not necessarily in all the replacements. So, I wish I had a better answer for you in terms of how the properties are going to be determined, but that's really, the investigation. The plan is to start it in January once we have the vendor on board, and as quickly as we can get that plan together, share it with the community so everybody knows exactly how soon we're going to get to each property.
So will there be letters being sent out?
Yes.
Will there be information posted on websites so we
Yes.
can know, okay, our street is going to be, done on such and such date?
Absolutely. No, we want to be completely transparent of the different phases of the project. Those 2,700 homes, will be contacted to let them know you're in the next phase. And then as we move forward, once we have the plan in place, communicating regularly with residents to let them know, neighborhood associations, all that, to let them know when the work is happening.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe this is Georgia Pierce.
Hi, my name is Georgia Pierce. I just had a few different questions about the logistics of replacing the pipes. So number one, how many lead pipes were replaced this year? And then how much did that cost?
This year, coming forward?
Like this
in the
year
coming
ending in
year.
This
December.
current year?
Right. So this year coming up.
So you're talking through 2024?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we won't know until the end of the year how many we plan to replace. I mean, how many will have been replaced. So that will depend on how much work we can get done before the end of the year.
How many have been replaced so far?
How many have been done so far? Yeah.
Okay. And then my second question, I really do think it's incredible that we've gotten so much state funding, but that will require scaling up a lot. So what's the plan for being able to handle that capacity?
Yeah, so I think to Greg's earlier point, to keep making that ask to the state and to the federal government, but it doesn't, it's not as if we're going to stop there. We will plan to supplement with city funding as well, so coming before the council to bond for these major projects. So it's not as if, if the state stays at the same level or something happens, we're just going to go up and down with whatever the state says. We want to supplement it with city funding as well. So, we have capital projects. As Commissioner Brandt mentioned, we're reallocating money that was intended for other water projects and reallocating it to this project. So hopefully between our funding, state funding, who knows what, because it is a national problem, whether or not the federal government will come through with any new funding sources, I don't know. But, hopefully through those sources, even if they come through the state and with the cities putting up our own funding, that we can get this done on the timeline. That's the plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Emily Freeman. Emily Freeman. Nathan, would you like to check if she's out in the hallway, maybe? Possibly, thank you. Then I believe I have somebody with the last name of Stanley, or Jan, or Jan.
Oh.
It's already been answered? Okay. And then there's another one that I cannot, I don't know.
I appreciate help.
They got extra eyes.
Testing timeline.
Beth.
Beth, yeah, because it's down here. Beth. Is there a Beth here?
Garden or something like that?
No, that's Gisolen. Beth.
Okay. Any person that lives on Hanson Road by chance? Going once, going twice? Okay, and is he checking to see if the other person is in the hallway? Or not? Okay. All right. I would like to say thank you to everyone that came out tonight to listen. This is our first style that I've ever done since I've been a council member here, of this type of forum that we have between the community and also the administration and members of the council. I would like to thank Chief Operating Officer Corey Driscoll, Commissioner Water, Mr. Brandt, our member from the Onondaga County Health Department, Chief Policy Officer Greg Lowe, our district councilors, Councilor Williams, Councilor Monto, Eckler, Councilor, Majoke, myself, Councilor Peniagua, Councilor Caldwell, not Cadwell, Councilor Nave, and Councilor Hogan. Yes.
Yeah, Cadwell.
Hold on 1 second, please. 1 second, please. Yes, ma'am.
Margot Clark. I know that you're not responsible for the pipes in the homes.
Right.
My question is, what can we do to put pressure on landlords to take responsibility for the places that they own and rent to replace the lead pipes in homes?
Is there any?
I mean, I think we can have conversations with the council about, There's been some talk of disclosure, similar as there is with lead paint, that requiring. I mean, that's a state law, but we can certainly have some conversations about getting landlords more involved in the lead service conversation.
Absolutely. We'll be proactive on that.
And is that a code issue? Having a home up to code if there is lead pipes within, once inside the home?
Yeah,
It's
I don't
not
believe it's a code
issue?
violation to have. Yeah, it's not a code violation to have lead structure and fixtures within your home.
Okay. Thank you.
Take one more and then I'm closing out.
Points. First of all, it seemed to be left hanging about how to deal with the health department and the county legislature, the county executive, and I think some follow-up with the health department in a very transparent way and should be reported to the public about how they can be more actively involved in the care of people that live in the county. It seems like I'm not very familiar with this topic at all, so I can't speak to it, but it does seem like the county needs to step up. They're the ones who are bringing in Mike Ron. They're the ones that are getting involved in a lot of things, and frankly, they're the ones with the money. So I think they need to be more actively involved in caring for the people that live here. Secondly, how are you, I just had a question for Corey, I guess, real quick. How are you coordinating what replacements you've already done with the curb and milling projects that are very costly? And I know some of the neighbors, Corey Williams was out meeting with a bunch of neighbors on Greenwood Place when you did that. And one of the neighbors specifically asked, what is happening? Are you going to be ripping up this road like I think we are aware of, and I won't mention names, other streets where they were curb and milling was done, and a year later they're ripped up to have this work done? We're talking $1 million capital jobs.
Right.
How can that happen in this day and age when we're supposedly coordinating infrastructure?
Right.
So you can answer that. And then lastly, I will just say, what's going to happen from this meeting to engage you've got some very smart, knowledgeable people that have spoken up. You have their names. I think you should, in my view, you could quickly put together an advisory committee. That way we, the public, would have more trust if you had regular input from these folks that spoke up, that are very knowledgeable, young, dynamic people that are here. So it's not just the same people on the same committees that are engaged, but let's get some voices from the public. Syracuse does not have commissions. It doesn't have official advisory boards. It's time to start looking at getting the public more engaged in governing, in my view. And then, Corey, go ahead and answer.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, you'll be happy to know we're using GIS and our partners with Esri to map milling projects, sidewalk projects, lead services that need to be replaced, so that you're right. There is definitely room for improvement, but that work is underway to make sure that we have coordinated efforts, that if we are doing lead service replacements, it's in conversation with the milling and paving, that if we're doing dig once projects through engineering, that lead services is part of that, and sidewalks are in the mix too. So the goal is to do a much better job of coordinating. It's a great question.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Just want to let you know, thank you all for coming once again. This does not stop here. We are going up. I'm telling you, this council and this administration are going to be very proactive in regards to this concern, and you will be hearing from us very, very, very soon. We'll keep you all updated, and thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you.
Blessings to everyone.
Hi, Jimmy.